Hello, everybody. Welcome to One Day Today. This is episode 14. We are over a month deep in this virtual stage, and we've had some amazing shares so far. Every day, it's just inspiring for me. Everybody comes from a different place, whether they grew up in a different part of the world with a different culture, different language, different upbringing, or different circumstances, but they all end up here with a similar, story of transformation, of facing their own situation, their own fears, their own considerations. And that's what we're focused on. In the midst of a global pandemic, we're focused on the beauty in the world. We're focused on collateral beauty, as my dear friend and one of the guests today has referred me to. But we're here to shine the beauty that's happening in the world amidst all the what seems to be chaos. But it's not only that, out of chaos comes, opportunity and beauty. And that's where humans shine. And that's why we're here. That's why we're spotlighting. And that's why we have our amazing guests here sharing today. Let me bring Matthew, our co-host. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Ron. How's it going today, brother?
It's going well today. Good to see you. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I really appreciate what you were saying. Like, it's funny how often the craziest, most painful situations often turn out to be the most transformative ones if we can really embrace it and lean into the pain and learn the lessons from it, right? Like I've just experienced a lot of that in my life. And I know just talking to you, like you have as well. And so I just really appreciate a chance to bring people on and let them share their transformations and what they've learned through their experiences and how that can transform the world. Like it's this opportunity to learn from everyone, basically, to see yourself in every single person on this stage. And it's been a blast. Like I can't believe we've been going this long, and it doesn't seem like we've done that much at all. Like it's just been so easy.
Right. Absolutely. Everyone has some unique, contribution, unique genius, unique skill, talent, something that no one else can do the way they can. And that's why I think it's really great to highlight. And like you were saying, it is counterintuitive, but when we face and kind of step through our fears, that's when the most beautiful things in life present themselves. And
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. And I guess on that note, let's bring in our first guest. We have Meredith. Meredith, thank you for joining us.
Hey guys.
I'm so happy you're with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, Meredith, the stage is yours.
All right. So it wasn't that long ago that I distinctly remember the feeling on a Friday afternoon of walking into my office and going, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't take another 80-hour work week. And if I sit down at this computer one more time to do payroll, praying that people wait until Monday to cash a check, I don't want the stress. I'm over it. So if you're a business owner, does this sound familiar to you? It was me just a few short years ago. And what's crazy is at the same time I was thinking all of that, we were the poster child for the Chamber of Commerce on how you take this small home-based business and grow it into a massive success. Only 10 years and 100 employees later, that success was my nightmare. You see, I didn't know any better. So when I built the company, I built it with all roads leading to my office. And something had to give. I absolutely could not keep going like that. So I decided to go to a workshop, the kind where you're around positive people all week long, trying to do something good for yourself. And I spent the entire week complaining about this business that I had built that I no longer liked. It wasn't until the last day that I was there that it finally hit me upside the head that I had the ability to change my mind, to really change my mind. And that started me on a journey. And quite honestly, it took thousands of hours and dollars later for me to realize that in that process of changing my mind, I could also grow the business because I was growing. And it took me growing for the business to grow. And then as the business grew, I had the responsibility to start developing the people in that organization. And as we developed the people, the only thing left for me to do was get out of the way and let them go to work. As they said, my name is Meredith Viguers, and my company, Empowered You, helps small business owners that want to grow their business, but they need to do it more profitably and less of their own time involved. And the only way to do that is to have the right team. And quite honestly, when we're talking to small business owners, one of the most terrifying things for them is getting a team in place. So I want to spend just the next few minutes talking a little bit about that process that I went through that took me from being, quite honestly, miserable and stuck in the place I was in that business to moving into a place where the business could grow. It could do it more profitably and without me. And quite honestly, today, even in the midst of a global pandemic, we're able to keep these things going because of the lessons that I learned. So I have a process that I take people through, and really, whether you're a business owner or you're just somebody that's going through a difficult time and you're managing a team, these are principles that you can use for yourself. So if you're a business owner specifically, and you can change your mind, develop your people, and then get out of the way, you can have a massively successful business. So change your mind. I realize that on the surface, most people are going to say, well, yeah, that sounds good, but I know this to be true. The reality is when I went to that conference, my mind said, you've been in business for 10 years. You've built it to as big as you can. We're one of the largest catering companies in Central Texas. And I didn't think there was anything more to do. We had hit the ceiling. So in my mind, this was as good as it was going to get. And if that was as good as it was going to get, I didn't want it. What was interesting is when I decided that I could change my mind, I went, has anybody ever grown a catering company to more than what we're doing right now? And of course, the answer was yes. So if somebody else did it, that does mean it can be done, which really doesn't mean that we've hit a ceiling. It just means that I don't know how to get past the current ceiling we've hit. So the first thing I had to do was change my mind about what was possible. So if you're in that place where you're going, I'm stuck, I've hit the same dollar amount for the last several years, or I've had the same area and I can't seem to grow out of it, or I can't seem to expand my products, or my team just isn't working right, the very first thing that you have to do is change your mind. And I'm going to say something that my instructors that have taught me about how you speak to audiences tell me all the time that you shouldn't tell people. But let's be real. It's time to be honest, right? The reality was that I'm responsible for all of the outcomes in my life. So if I'm the one that puts those things into motion, which I am, I'm the only one that has control and therefore responsibility to change those thought processes in my head going forward. So in terms of changing my mind, it was a matter of saying, this is what I have believed in the past. I know that that's not absolutely true because somebody else has already done more, gone further, and done it better than I have. I just have to find out that those people do exist. And once I know that it exists, I know it's something that I can do. Now I have the responsibility to make the decision to change the way I think about it moving forward. And the business can only develop as fast as the owner. So it wasn't until I made the changes in myself and the way that I thought and started growing my own thought processes, and the business began to take off because it was following me and not the other way around. Now, what was interesting is that as I started changing my mind and moving forward, then I realized that my responsibility transferred from just what I was doing with myself to now what I needed to do with a team of people. Well, we had over 100 employees. You can imagine we're a large event catering company. So, if you're going to feed 1,000 people at an event, you've got to have a pretty large staff to accomplish that. Now, these weren't all full-time employees, but a handful of them, and our management team was. And what I learned really early on was that employees don't come to work for a paycheck. And you heard me right. Yes, everybody needs to pay their rent. They need to, pay their utilities and feed their family and do those kind of things. But When you really drill down to it, a paycheck is not why people show up. People have a reason for what they're doing every day in their lives. There's a reason they get out of bed and show up. There's a reason they get out of bed and show up with a good attitude. And there's a reason why they will partner with you to create the vision with you that you have for your company. And that is when you find out what is important to them and you express that you're willing to help them work on those things as they work with you, they feel valued. And employees, generally speaking, and I'm saying employees, but understand if you have contractors that you work with or vendors that you work closely with, this encompasses all of those people. When we align ourselves with people based on the values that we hold and the dreams that we wish to accomplish, the paycheck is simply a method by which people can take care of their livelihood. But realistically, what we're doing is saying, I, as your employer, care about you as an employee and the things that you wish to accomplish in your life. So share those things with me. And as we're going down this journey, I'll help you get those things while you help me build this company. We're in the food service industry, and that is not exactly known for staff loyalty, but yet we have people who have been with us for 10 years because we understand what that partnership really needs to look like. And then the other thing, and this is where small business owners and even managers to a certain extent within organizations need to understand something. When you equip people to do the things within your organization that need to get done, you have got to get out of their way. When you stay on top of them, when you micromanage things, when you're constantly checking in, all you've done is say, hey, I've completely empowered you to do this task, but I'm not going to really let you do it. Who does that give confidence to? No one. And what you'll find is when you get out of the way and let people really step into the potential that they have, they will shock you with what they're capable of. My business did not start growing more profitably until I stopped getting in the way of allowing it to happen. Tell you a quick story. We landed a pretty large contract a few years ago, and it was going to take all hands on deck. I mean, we actually hired 50 extra people to make it happen. It was one of those company changing type contracts. Our crew was there at 2:30 in the morning prepping. We were there till 10 o'clock at night, feeding 4,000 soldiers a day in the field, 2 different meals. The very first weekend that event began to happen, as we were in the field with the soldiers and cooking in tents and all these crazy things, it's quite the story. But the very first weekend it happened, I got a phone call and my husband was being rushed to the emergency room. And my initial thought, the very second that I got that phone call was, why now? This is the worst possible time this could happen. This is a life-changing contract that we have to deliver on. I can't deal with him being in the hospital. And I know that's horribly selfish. But what was interesting is I got that phone call and I looked at my management team and they said, go, we've got it under control. That was the biggest blessing in disguise that our company ever had, because I found out that week who was ready for so much more than I had ever given them before. Because it wasn't until I was in a position where I really had no control over it. I needed them to step up. I needed to be at the hospital with my husband and figure out what was going on. And he's fine now, by the way. But they stepped up and took on things that I had never asked them to do. They stepped up and took on responsibilities that I did not know they were capable of at that time. That position made me get out of the way. But I'm so glad it did, because it taught me such a valuable lesson about what people are capable of. And so I know as I talk about these things, because people ask me all the time, they're like, hey, Meredith, I get it. It sounds good. It worked for you. Can this actually work for me? And the answer is absolutely. Of course it can. It's crazy. I used to be the mom that missed every football and baseball game. I was the wife that was completely unavailable for my husband. And I was the business owner that had zero energy for my staff because I was exhausted, like all the time. And so today, I just posted pictures earlier. She was with me in my office. I'm the Mimi with the cutest granddaughter in the world. And I get to love on her anytime I want to. And my husband and I have more quality time now than we've ever had before. And my staff and I are working on legacy projects that actually energize us. And so, these are things that everyone as a business owner deserves. And so you deserve to have an incredible business that produces an abundance of cash flow. And you deserve to have an incredible business that actually frees up your time. You deserve to have an incredible business that leaves a legacy to last a lifetime. So in short, you deserve an incredible business. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Meredith, for sharing that. It's really inspiring. How you're able to transform your mindset in your own situation, and not only are you sharing this with all of us, but you've created a situation where you have time, like you're saying, quality time with your husband. You've figured a way to win, and that's amazing. So what was it that like transformed that mindset that you were able to change your situation and change? Like what changed or what happened?
So the thing, and like I said, I anyone who tells you how to speak will tell you not to say this in the first interaction with somebody, but it's basically, I had to realize that at some level, everything I was dealing with that I didn't like, I caused. And so when I really took ownership of the fact that I'm only in this situation because I put myself here. And even in the midst of Corona chaos and all of this other stuff, like there are things for anybody who's going, I didn't see this coming, it's the government's fault, it's this, it's that. Like there are still certain things that I could have done that would have changed the outcome of how I'm dealing with this now, right? So on some level, if we're willing to take ownership of everything that's occurred and just say somewhere along the way, I am responsible for what occurred in this process, what that does is it gives me ownership of the ability to change the outcome. So if I own what got me to this point, then I own the thought process that takes me to the next place. And I have complete control over making that change because I'm the reason I got here in the first place. So I can be the reason I go to the next place.
Absolutely. It's very empowering. Like what you're saying, the key word that you just said, it was responsibility. And yeah. I've experienced like my own power when I realized not only am I responsible for the solution, but I'm also responsible for what's in the way. Yeah. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. I could transform the entire situation. So I think that's very powerful tool. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to add to that really quick, I remember getting so caught in the blame game so often early on. Like it was always something outside of my control that was the problem, not me. And what I realized at some point was like, it doesn't matter how I got to where I was. The fact is I'm there and I can start taking responsibility from that moment on.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, realistically, we don't get to control what has already occurred, but we have complete control over what occurs in the future, even in the midst of external circumstances. So like, today, obviously in the midst of what's happening in the world, a catering company that specializes in large events is not doing a ton of business at the moment, right? And I have other companies. We have a honey company that's doing very well at the moment. And then the consulting work I do is doing very well at the moment. But there's still this element of external circumstances. The reality is me 4 years ago, if this would have hit at that time, would have probably just shut the doors and walked away. I'm just being really honest about it. I was not in a point where I would have chosen to look at things the way that I am today. And so today I can sit and look at it and say, okay, we're going to pivot our entire business model. We're going to do, meal deliveries, and we're going to take donations for first responders, and we're going to do this and that and implement all these different things to keep the doors open, keep serving our community, make sure that our staff, our key staff stays employed, and be ready for what happens as events start to come back. That wouldn't have occurred 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I would have shut it down. And I say that Very certainly. So once you get to a point where you start making these determinations for yourself, it changes the entire thought process around how you make decisions going forward. So it allows me to take a step back. And it doesn't mean I haven't had bad days during this, right? Because it's been a roller coaster. So there have been some days where I go, oh, maybe it would be easier. But then, I kind of come right back to the point of, no, we've got a plan in place and we're, doing the things that we need to do. But it changes the frame on which I make decisions today compared to the way that I used to look at those things.
Yeah, like that, I feel like that parallels to so many other areas, like to pretty much every area in one's life as well. Like that applies not just to business, but to friendships and community and schools and learning and everything. Just that basic mindset of, first of all, taking responsibility. I'm here right now. No matter what happened in the past, I can't change it. So what can I do going forward to address it? And just being proactive.
Absolutely.
And then two, like that not being attached to one particular outcome, right? Like, because you have changed your mindset, you've literally transformed the way you think about the world. You're able to pivot and not get stuck on one particular goal when that goal is no longer an option. You can just go, okay, well, this has happened. I'm here. Let's just go do something else. And it's so much easier because you've had that experience already.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's a testament to the transformation, just as you observed about yourself. If it happened 4 years ago, you would have handled it completely different. And I think that's a testament to the transformation of your mindset. Just knowing that you're the same person, but dealing with a situation like this and actually seizing new possibilities despite all the things that are in the way. You're opening new doors, and I think that's admirable. So I think it's really inspiring that you're not only launching all of your own career, but you're sharing this message with us. So I really acknowledge you, and I appreciate you sharing with us today, Meredith.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just have one more question. So looking at it in other parts of your life, can you recall a situation or experience where it wasn't a business thing, but maybe it was something with a friend or something like with a community member, where having that transformation of mindset had basically changed the outcome from what it would have been 3 or 4 years ago?
Where I can probably relate that the most actually has to do with myself from the standpoint of my physical health. So one thing that's really easy for me to do is to default to business. That's natural for me. It's a place that I can go to really easy when I'm stressed. Let me go do some work or, that type of thing. What I'm really, really bad at is taking, I won't say I'm really bad at, what I'm learning to get better at is taking care of myself in terms of when I do get stressed, knowing that I need to make sure that I'm sleeping. Make sure that I'm getting exercise, that in some way, shape, or form, that I'm moving frequently, that I'm eating well. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm understanding now the correlation between the productivity with the business and the way that I'm able to relate based on the way that I feel. And in the past, I definitely would have had some not so healthy ways of dealing with stressful times. Specifically, and it's not something that, that I talk about a ton, but years ago when our restaurant was open and I was in that really bad place, it was like, you know what, I don't sleep at night because my brain never stops. So, let's drink enough until that goes away, right? Because then I can sleep for a few hours and we'll deal with tomorrow kind of mindset. Whereas today, a lot of it is, okay, I know that I've done everything that I can possibly do that I need to do today to have it be a productive day, so my mind can rest tonight. And I keep a piece of paper by the bed, so if my mind is going, I can write some stuff down and go back to sleep. And, just different ways of making sure that I am my best self, because I need to be present for my family and I need to be present for my employees and my customers and everyone else. And when I'm not in good condition physically, that's really hard to do because my energy is low and things of that nature. So I can tell you that's been a personal struggle of mine for years. And it's something that I just feel like I'm getting a grasp on. But I know that that's something, especially now, that a lot of people are dealing with during, shut at home and quarantine times and things of that nature. And I'm just, my mindset around being best myself first so that I can be better for other people is new. And I think for women especially, this is a difficult thing because we tend to take care of everyone else first. And like someday we'll get around to doing what's best for us. And, as moms and wives and, all of these other responsibilities we have, if we're not really making sure that we're good, we can't be good for anyone else. And so that's just something from that mindset shift that I'm really learning with myself, is that I have to take that time so that I can deal with things in a positive frame of mind, rather than lapsing into poor ways of handling stress and not being as productive as I can be.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Like, that was more than I could have hoped for from an answer. Because I don't feel like that gets talked about enough in this country. Like, we aren't raised with a focus on self-awareness and mindful awareness and just understanding ourselves. Like, that doesn't exist growing up for us. And so anytime that like someone has had that transformational experience through self-awareness, where they can like you just described, where you were able to actually stop and take note of, oh, okay, no, I'm actually feeling stressed right now, I need to step away. Or, oh, like I can't sleep right now because my mind is running, so I need to get this out. And then you can go back to taking care of you.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. Like, especially with women, I've worked with so many women who the nurturing spirit controls them, not the other way around. Like, they are totally lost in nurturing the world and have no sense of taking care of themselves at all. And it spirals into this really awful thing sometimes. So like, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much, Meredith, again for sharing. I hope you'll join us again and share some more in the future.
Absolutely. Love to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Meredith.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Meredith. And thank you all who are tuning in with us today. If you'd like to share on the stage, just like these amazing guests who are sharing with us, you can go to our website, onedaymvmt.org. This is your opportunity to share what you're bringing. This is a picnic that we're all invited, but what are you bringing? There's something you have, something you cook that none of us are able to even touch. And we want your presence. We want your contribution, because we're all better off when you show up. And that's why we're here. And our mission of the One Day Movement is bringing you and I and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. Doing that one conversation, one story, one share at a time. And that's why we have this space, and we encourage and invite you to share with us, because this is something where we all benefit. We all contribute. But on that note, I'd like to introduce our next guest. We have with us Sophia Olivas. Sophia, so good to see you.
Hey.
Well, welcome to the stage.
Oh, we're so happy you're here.
What a powerhouse. That Meredith, that's the first time I've ever met her, and wow.
Yeah, seriously.
We don't mess around on this stage. We bring the real every single time.
Yeah. Well, I will say it takes one to know one, Sophia. It takes one to know one. And well, on that note, let's hear it. The stage is yours, Sophia.
Well, thanks so much. So I get to jump in and unexpectedly. So thank you so much for having me last minute onto your stage. And so I just want to kind of retouch what Meredith spoke about mindset. And also about having balance. What you would want for the others in your life to have, make sure that you do so with leading. And I think that Meredith was really touching upon how everything is filtered. Everything occurs in your life through the filter of your mindset, which is why it's so important to build upon that. And I wanted to talk about like what Abram had shared in the beginning, which was, we as a species during this time have the absolute profound privilege of witnessing such beauty. This is the largest transference of wealth that's ever taken place. There are so many opportunities. And he spoke about what I had mentioned to him in a conversation about all the collateral beauty that's going on. We're witnessing humanity come back to heart. And there's been enough time that people are having enough time to interrupt their patterns of their daily grind, such that they're in their homes where they feel safe and authentic. And you're seeing like the greatest pivots in history take place. And you're the largest concentration of creativity, the things that are going to come out of the quarantining from all these people that either were unable to go to their jobs, or their companies had to shut down. And now they're able to do all those projects or things that were floating around in their hearts and their minds. We're starting to see so many amazing projects coming out. And One Day is one of them. And, One Day was going to be this huge, amazing festival that was going to take place this weekend in Nashville. And it was going to have all these stages, and it was just going to be a huge setting for this global launch of this initiative. And look at this amazing pivot. I'm just so proud of you, Abram, of pivoting and creating a stage for it to be inclusive for everyone. And look at how huge it's gotten, just because you were willing to just set aside what you thought it should have been and what it could have been, and just open it up to what it is now. So thank you for that. And I want to talk to you guys about pivoting and about the profound opportunities that are available now. If you take a look at, let's just kind of look at things that all of us can maybe kind of relate to, like late night talk shows, how they've pivoted. They've all moved on to doing the shows from their homes and invited us into their homes. And some of them have their children bouncing around, and some of them have their wives that are doing the filming. And it's just been, I've actually never really been interested in those much until now, because now it's like, oh, this is great. And then the people that they have on their shows, the stars, and they're like in their homes, and you get a peek at what like life is like for them. And there's just a lot more room for authenticity. There's the makeup artists aren't there, the lighting crew isn't there. It's been so fun just watching men. And I wish I would have thought, and I'm sure somebody would have thought of taking pictures of all the men that I've been interacting with the last few months, and just watching their hair as it got unkept. Like, that has been an absolute joy to witness. And let's talk about like the ones that got hit hard, like yoga studios and gyms when they got shut down, their pivots. I've seen yoga instructors make more money in an entire year in this short amount of time, because they pivoted to going online. And now more people can participate, because there's certain things where people don't want to be in a gym, and they don't want to be around other people, and they're body conscious of what now. And now personal trainers from the gym, and gyms are having, like, their membership is now expanded to, okay, so we have classes just like we did all day long that are available, except for now you just live stream in, and here's our instructor teaching you. And there's just so much more money that people are making. And I think companies are realizing that you don't have to have your employees be physically there. They don't have to be going through an hour of traffic one way, and that they're actually probably even more productive working from home. If you allow them to handle what they need to handle at home, there's a little bit more balance, and the employees are a little bit more settled, and they have a space to where they can, create and generate and go through those meetings and come up with more out of the box solutions. And I just, I'm looking at all the humans that are just in my own neighborhood helping each other through the Nextdoor app. If you're on that wherever you live, if that's available. If not, I would create one. The Nextdoor app is a free app where it's geolocated, so you can find out who in your neighborhood, what's going on and who needs what and what's available. And in my own neighborhood, everybody checked in with all the elderly people and made sure that they were able to write down their list and go. And then everybody that was younger went and did their grocery shopping for them, so that they did not ever have to leave their homes and have any concerns around that. and they checked and made sure that their lawn was mowed and their weeds and things if they didn't want to have a landscaper come or couldn't get it done. I saw the children, the weeks that they got out of school, they decorated blocks and blocks of our sidewalks with chalk art where everybody was walking, and they would like set up a physical regime. So they were like, do hopscotch here, turn around and point out 5 things that you never noticed before. And there were phrases, and they were writing messages to their teachers and their classmates that they didn't get to see. And we all got to participate in it. Every week, our neighborhood did different themes with the children. We would put things out, like during Easter, somebody woke up super early and hid hundreds and hundreds of eggs all over the block that were kept in like packages. And so they were completely hermetically sealed. And the kids all over their yards in their own yards got to go and go have like a little bit of an Easter egg hunt. And it's just been, all I've seen is just the most beautiful, magnificent pieces of humanity combining together. And people checking in with one another. I've seen people call people that they have been out of contact with or incomplete with get complete. And I've seen technology make us more human. I've seen where we have, felt that heartache when Italy first started their wave, and when all of that wisdom was lost within their community with their elderly neighborhood, and I've seen humanity rise to the occasion with where they would just sing in the streets, and where people are leading exercise in the morning. They would just they would take a whole complex, and then somebody would stand in the ground, and everybody would go out to their patios, and he would just lead in a Tai Chi or a yoga or a meditation. Like, are you looking? Are you really looking with these eyes? Are you witnessing what's going on? And how are you being a part of that? How are you capturing that? How are you taking advantage of that and taking advantage of this time? And it starts, within your own self. Definitely to continue on Meredith's line of thinking, what you want for others, do so first by leading and having that for yourself. So what are you doing to breathe right now? There in the beginning of this quarantine, I remember I had moments where I would just break down in tears. There's no reason. It's not like anything was happening to me. I was absolutely perfectly safe. At that time, the majority of the people that I loved were safe. We were, very well stocked, and yet there I was, I would just absolutely be crying. And what I really got is that I was feeling all of the energy and really just being with the fact that like life was never going to change. And I refer to it as like BC time, which before COVID. And now it's AC, we're getting through this. And what is it going to look like? And you could be in that position where you're like, there's a missing for me. I want to get back to how things were. Let's get back to normal. Well, normal is this, and this is where we're at, and this is what we've got to work with. So how do you play with that? How do you make magic in that and make miracles happen and have it be an ecstatic life? How do you take with what you've got with wherever you're at and go from here? I've seen music artists that have just lit up the world that had to cancel all their tours, and now they're online every day. You can listen to some of your favorite artists in their rooms, in their living rooms, and somebody was in their barn and just singing for us. And anybody that's like has any artistic talents, they're just out there pouring their talents to us. This is like what these people have wanted to begin with, and now we get to just partake in it. Like, I got to jam to some of my favorite DJs that, unless I wanted to go to some of the festivals in Germany or whatnot, I don't get to hear live. And they're just like constantly in the background with me as they're doing their live sets. And some of these musicians that don't normally tour are doing these wonderful in-home very personal, like where you feel like you're sitting down on the couch with them, and acoustic and a cappella, and there's poetry slams going on. I just want to make sure that everyone is taking a moment to take in all of the phenomenal things that are going on. And that's just what I want to leave you with.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for sharing. And you're so right. There's so much beauty happening. When you said, like, what are you seeing with your eyes? Like, and it's so true. Like, what we focus on is what we see. Like, I could focus on all the scary things and I'll be afraid, but I could focus on all the beautiful things that didn't even expect to see. And then the world is just more beautiful than I ever even noticed before, or BC, before COVID. And I think that's amazing. And that's the real opportunity for humanity, is what we could see with our collective eyes when we actually show up to ourselves and decide to contribute and take care of ourselves and everybody, and like when we actually see how connected we are, when we try to keep our neighbors healthy, we're healthy. And I think that's beautiful. And so what do you see, what do you see as we're transitioning? And I mean, obviously there's still, nobody knows what's going to happen. And people who say they do are definitely misled, or don't really know. But what do you see is opening up now, like especially with this transitional period of where the world's starting to open up now?
So many financial lucrative opportunities. So technology has just gotten a major boost. Now people know what Zoom is. I've been using Zoom technology for a very long time to do my work, but now that's like a common household word. Instead of like, let's do an online meeting, it's like, let's Zoom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not even using Zoom, even Facebook jumped on board, right? They saw that and they quickly adapted, and now there's Zoom, there's Facebook meeting rooms. It's just basically a Zoom room, right? So I'm seeing that there's for corporations, they have an opportunity now that people know that they've gotten into a rhythm of working at home. Companies can really seize that opportunity and scale down their physical headquarters to where they have people working at home, the ones that want to. I got that there's some people that need that physical contact, and when we can get back to that in a responsible manner, that would be appropriate as well. But there's just so many opportunities for people to jump into that business they always wanted to start, or that run into that cause that they always wanted to do. I mean, how many times did you say you were for the environment? Now you've got some free time. Are you volunteering? There's a lot of nonprofits out there that need assistance. And now there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily doing a day-to-day thing. So then where are you putting your expertise? Like, who are you helping? And that's what I believe is like the massive opportunities right now, is to, if you've got some free time, what did you always want to do, but had that justification that you didn't have time? So what are you doing about that now?
Absolutely.
That is the question, isn't it? Like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, now that you have no excuses, now that you're stuck at home, what are you doing with yourself, and how comfortable are you really with just being with you? And I feel that, like, it feels like a paradigm shift to me. Like, everything you said, I've been watching it, and it feels like this massive paradigm shift all across the world. And it's not just transforming the way we live, but it's also transforming the way we are. Like, there's more compassion and gratitude that's constantly coming forward all the time. And just, you're hearing concepts now, or I'm hearing concepts now that I've heard talked about on a public stage, like servant leadership, compassionate leadership, leading with gratitude, things like that, that wasn't even in the news cycle 6 months ago. And now it's like we hear things like this all the time. Like, even on the political stage, we have crazy things like UBI that's just all of a sudden, people have advocated for it for years. Martin Luther King was a fan of it, and now people are realizing that we do have a dividend of wealth that we can pay people from, and that we don't have to have a job to find meaning in our lives, that we can find meaning for ourselves, and then that meaning can go on and transform someone else. And I love that. So I just want to thank you for the gratitude. Like that like was really lovely to hear. All the little things. I always forget that it's like even like the little details that people seem to overlook, And I really appreciate your attention to that detail.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's really nice to it's always nice to hear you speak, Sophia, but you always notice, as Matthew was saying, you've always noticed those details and what some of us might miss. And I think that does come from a grateful heart. And you've always had such a gratitude about you. And I think it's amazing to just observe and to hear you speak about the world, because there's so many beautiful things that it's like, I didn't even think of that. Like, people are doing that. And I think that's that we're all better off with, people like you with such big hearts and just sharing and shining the world with their love. And I think it's amazing who you are. And I acknowledge who you're being and what you're standing for in the world. And I really appreciate your sharing with us, especially last minute.
It was my absolute pleasure.
Absolutely, Sophia. Thank you so very much. And before we sign off and Abram does his little closing thing, let's bring Meredith back on for a second if she's ready, and welcome back. Since we got a little extra time, something I've liked doing at the end is just giving a chance for you two to interact for a second and just share what you felt about each other's share.
For sure. Well, Sophia, I echo what Abram said. I appreciate kind of the gratitude by which you share your thoughts. And that's a practice I've had for a while, is to wake up with gratitude and go to sleep with gratitude, and really look for the things, especially during those times where it would be really easy to focus on what's negative in the world and around us, to find the things that are going well, and to look at, and you mentioned it several times, the opportunities that are available. And we all sort of skew the opportunities from our point of view. So for me, I'm looking at business opportunities like crazy right now, because that's the way my mind works.
Sure.
But at the same time, it was like, the first week, it was like, oh my God, this is awful. And then as it started to go, it was still, oh my God, this is awful, but maybe there's an opportunity here, and you kind of start looking at it differently. So when you're talking about what's gone on in your neighborhoods and things of that nature, it is really interesting. And I think this has been proven time and time in American history specifically, but I know it's a global feeling as well, how in times of turmoil, we all rise to take care of each other as a community. And we see that it's proven time and time again. And, one of the things that we did business-wise was to pivot and offer people to make donations for us to deliver meals to first responders and essential workers and things like that. And what's interesting is when we pivoted the business to say, hey, you can order meals for your family and you can do this, we had some response. But as soon as we said, hey, you can give donations and we'll take food to all these essential workers and first responders, that's when the phone started to ring.
Yes.
And so inherently, people want to help other people. And I love your focus on that, and the way that we support one another in not only our individual communities, but really as a nation and then around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for doing that for the first responders. I heard that pivot and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And that was like perfect, because as leaders, that's how we get to lead, right? We get to lead people through heart, and especially as women coming from more of a collaborative and the feminine energy, we just tend to be more collaborative. That's where we get to lead, the people, and lead men in specifically, is that we get to lead with our heart and show them how to connect to their heart. And so congratulations for doing that. That's just all around a great financial success. As every individual succeeds, everybody succeeds. So it's important that you as an individual, you succeed. And it's important to me that you succeed, because when you succeed, I succeed, because you're taken care of. And then it's like, okay, great, we can focus on the next person, you know? So it's your responsibility to make sure you succeed. And what you were talking about, when you talked about the power of responsibility, that I want to make sure people can hear that. So I want to really like restate it for people. When you're the victim of something, especially something that's out of your control, which is what a victim really basically is something that's out of their control, that's where your loss of power is.
Yeah.
The minute that you can take a look at and like either put a mirror in front of you, or like if you look when you're pointing, you've got the 3 fingers pointing at yourself, right? If you're pointing, if you're able to do the work, which is what Katie Bryan, like what she says, do the work, and you turn around and look at yourself, the moment that you can accept where you're responsible in the matter for whatever it is that you're looking at, that's where your power is. Because if you're responsible for something, then you now can change it. And that's what Abram had said. And that is, you know, it's like you said, the 2 sides of a coin. On one hand, you're responsible for it, right? Like you did that. On the other hand, you did that. So you now can make a different choice. And so I thought that was fantastic. Yeah. What I did want to hear, though, is what does one day mean to you, Meredith?
So I'm actually brand new to One Day. I was just exposed to these guys very recently. And so I'm learning. and I love the concept of taking something that was supposed to, because I've been a part of a ton of these events in the last couple of months, something that was supposed to be live and in person, and saying, you know what, we're not canceling. We're not just postponing. We're going to totally redo this thing and still put something in place that adds value to people. And so part of the reason that I was interested in talking with you guys is because one of my company's core values, which means it's my personal core value, is to value people and add value to people. And that's one of our, when I was talking a little bit about developing people and hiring and the way you bring people on, that is a core characteristic that when I take someone through an interview process, if I can't ascertain that they share that value with me, I don't care how good they are at their job, like we're never going to work together, right? So that has to be at the very core of who they are, is that they want to do more for people. And so I think it's easy to see when you get into settings, even when you're unfamiliar with someone, it's pretty easy to see when a simple value like that lines up. And when it does, then it can be a collaborative effort. So this is all still very new to me, and I'm glad to meet you guys, because we like literally just met. But it's, you know, and you guys were referred to me by somebody I'm in another community with who I respect. And so that's kind of how it all comes. But when those simple core values are in place, that's how you know that you're going to be able to collaborate with a certain group of people. So it was pretty easy to see that we were going to be able to connect and share to a similar group.
I thank you. Actually, thank you, Sophia, for asking that question. And you touched on something earlier that I feel like would be really lovely to go back to. And I want to be very conscious of both your time. So if you guys really need to go in an hour, just let me know and we'll end early. But if you've got a little extra time, I would love to hear something that you both have brought up. But Sophia, you brought it up last, so I'll ask you this first, and then we'll go to Meredith. Leading as a woman. That is something I've been very aware of in my life. The way our society has been structured, especially Western society, is there's not much space given to women's voices. It's just not, like, it's not there. And so I really love to hear women standing up like you're doing and sharing from a place of empowerment, and sharing yourself from a place of not just empowerment, but also vulnerability and being real about it. And so I was wondering, what was your background? Like, where did you find that voice for yourself early on? And how has that led you to where you are today?
That's a great question. I want to start by first addressing the men. You know, every day where can you open a door for a woman? And I say that physically, and I mean that also figuratively. You know, as a man, if you're listening to this conversation and you feel like you want to be part of that solution, to the gender challenges that are going on. You know, look for every day where you can open a door for a woman. So for me, where that came from, I know a lot of my grade school friends are probably watching this right now. A lot of people that have known me for many, many decades. I would say that it was something that just was instilled in me, like just not even instilled in me. It was something that just, I probably felt like I was born with, as far as so my father didn't intend to have a daughter. Like, he didn't even know what to do with a daughter. Like, and when this fur ball popped out of my mom, he was like, what do I do with it? I mean, I learned how to hunt, fish, track, and shoot before I learned how to comb my hair. So I was very much a tomboy growing up, and I had an older brother who, of course, was very roughhouse with me. And I think that as I grew up in a household where domestic violence, actually violence in all of its forms, was a daily occurrence. And I witnessed my mother, enduring that. And there was an incident, a moment in my life where I witnessed a moment where my father had financial control over my mother, to the point where he didn't allow her to have a job. And she felt like she couldn't leave him because she had 2 small children. And there were some other things, of course, in the background. And at that moment, this like small child, this girl, just solidified in her mind that, okay, I will never allow a man to have financial control over me. And I can see where my platform that I've run with the UN up for my elections with the United Nations is that I run on the platform and I speak about women's financial sovereignty. And it comes from, those experiences that I had as a child and watching and just experiencing domestic violence. And then it, there was a moment where that child, I thanked her for helping me survive through that, and told her, I got this. And then what it became was, oh, what an opportunity. I looked at the data and I saw that it's been proven that when women are given money, the whole community rises. And it's also been proven that when women are financially solvent, they go further in their education, they have kids later in life, they have fewer kids, they choose better domestic partners, and they take better care of their mental and physical health. So if you just look at all that data, what that just proved, it just, that solves poverty right there. That alleviates violence, and that bolsters mental health. And every concern that you can think about that the world has can fit in there. So I think that I just got it just impassioned me to see that there's such a easy, simple solution if you just work at and look at the source, which would be women. And we are, in addition to the source of that, we also are the creators of life. And most of us rear that life. Like we help formulate that life. So if you really want to get a handle on things that are going on now, get behind women.
Yeah. So Meredith, same question for you. Like, if you need me to repeat it, I can. But
yeah, no, it's okay. So for me, it comes from a very different place, which is I grew up as a pastor's kid. And this was, pastors' families were supposed to stay poor and humble, and we were the exemplary case of that. And I hated it. And so I grew up from a standpoint of not wanting that to be life for me going forward. And so basically what happened for me, and what's interesting, what I feel like sort of changed the trajectory that put me in an entrepreneurial path is my parents split up when I was 8. My mom and my stepfather got married when I was 10. And my stepfather and I, as much as we butt heads, we're also very similar personalities. So, there was some of that went on. And my parents, and so I'm probably dating myself a little bit here, but when I was about 11 years old, they got into network marketing with Amway Company. And, sorry, Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, Sophia just texted and she said she has to leave at 3:00. So I'm just going to say goodbye to her really quick, and then we'll come back to you. All right.
All right. It was great to meet you, Sophia.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
lovely.
you so much, Sophia.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. So my parents decided to go on, the network marketing bandwagon with Amway, and this was at the time when everything they preached was to read a book and listen to a tape, right? So you read a personal development book, and then we never listened to music in the car ever. We always listened to these talks on tape. But every one of them was somebody's story. It was somebody's rise from nothing to, everything and all of those kind of things. So as a kid in the car, this is what I listened to. It was what I was conditioned to for very formative years in my life. And I went on, through school. I'm a high school graduate. I didn't do any formal education after high school, but I always knew that I would work for myself. What I didn't know is how difficult that process was going to be. And so realistically, for the women out there, the reality is we do play a different game. And there is no, I would love to sit here and tell you that it's an even playing field and you just go out there and make it. That's not the case. It's just not. And so what I have learned is, and it's getting more even, but you definitely have to earn your spot at the table. And it took me several years, and we live in a town in Texas. It's a big little town, right? So it's just big enough that you don't know everybody in it, but the core of the community is the same people that have been here for a long time. So breaking into that, when we first got into business, it took me several years to break into the circle, so to speak, of people who really do business in this area. And you have to be a little bit more determined. You have to, one of the things that one of the local businessmen said to me a few years ago when I was asked to be on a committee, and he said, "Do you know why you're here?" And I said, I'm a collaborative thinker. I think creatively. He goes, "No, you're here because you've never heard the word no." And I said, and he goes, No. I'm sure you've been told no, but you've never heard the word no. And the reality is you have to have that mindset when you're coming into a situation where you're already a bit of an underdog. But the good part about that is we, as an American society anyway, are conditioned to root for the underdogs. We're conditioned that if we feel like we're the underdogs, we're going to press through, work harder, do more, be more, have more than anybody else, right? So it sort of gives us that extra oomph going forward. And I think it's important, and this was a big, big key for me a few years ago. I needed to know that I wasn't doing this alone, because for the first several years of the business, I was by myself. I felt like absolutely no one understood what I was dealing with. I had no one to depend on. I couldn't talk to my family because I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so I'm the unicorn in that family. It's just me, right? And then I didn't want to put that stress on my husband and my kids. And I certainly couldn't talk to my employees about it. I felt completely isolated. And it wasn't until I really started getting around other people who are small business owners who do deal with the same issues. And, I have different communities that I'm part of, different mastermind groups. I have a coach, all of those different things, because I needed someone else that when I said, this is the challenge I'm facing right now, they would go, oh, thank God, someone else is dealing with that too. And the reality is I have amazing friends, but they don't deal with what I deal with on a daily basis. So I can talk with them, but they don't relate. And so finding that group of people that I could relate to was absolutely massive. And I think for women especially, we're bad at asking for help. We're really bad at asking for help. And because we're expected, that nurturing side, we're expected to take care of other people. And so to take a step back and go, you know what, I'm probably not handling things as well as I could, and I really need some help with this. Not because I'm inept or I'm incapable, but we were meant to do life with other people. None of us were ever meant to do this whole thing alone. And so if we don't ask for assistance in those ways, we will never be able to fully do what we're capable of doing. And so my encouragement to other women would be if you're going at this and thinking, all right, I'm running in a man's world and I'm not doing very well, there's a game to be played. There is. And you've got to figure out what it is and figure out how to get your seat at the table in that game. But you need to have other people alongside you that have been through that journey and that can help you along the way. And it's okay to ask for that assistance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's like, I feel like there's even another thing in that too. It's like, not only do you have to decide if you want to play that game, or if like to play that game, just recognizing it as a game, but like, is that really the game for you?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, that's great. But like, if it's not, well, then, use that same determination, that same transformation to actually take your imagination and create something that's meaningful for you, right?
Well, and I think, that's one of the things just in the consulting work that I do is we'll have people that come in and they'll say, okay, I'm going to build this product or program, or I'm going to offer this service, and they want to go into business for themselves. But then when they really start going into it, it's like, okay, well, why did you decide to do this? And when it comes down to it, maybe they just didn't like a job that they had. So they assume that this is the next best thing. And in reality, they really don't want to go through all the challenges that it takes to be an entrepreneur. They just didn't like what they were doing before. So it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't always have to be an either or. And I think a lot of people would do really well from a self-evaluation standpoint to say, am I just not happy with what I'm doing now? And do I need to go find another place to do things that, that energize me and that I'm enthusiastic about? Or am I really ready for the journey of what being an entrepreneur takes? Because they're two very different things, depending on what they decide to do. And so, yeah, understanding what that purpose is, and am I really ready to play this game? And some of it comes when you're in a scaling mode, right? Like when you first start, if you're just wanting to do something to put some food on the table and, kind of get a passion out there and have it be a side hustle or, this and that, that's fantastic. And people who want to do that should recognize that that is a very valuable thing for their family and know what it is. It's when you get to the point where you're wanting to really scale a business and become, part of a community and develop, a brand and all of these other things, that you really get past that. Okay, we can't just operate. We've really got to dive into what this thing looks like. And that takes it to a whole different place.
Yeah, and that I'm just watching the time, and as much as I would love to keep asking questions, it feels like we're running a bit short. But that does tie it all back together. That just comes right back into the power of self-awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Just learning your own self.
You are who you are, Meredith, is extraordinary. It's amazing all the things you're able to do, and I'm so happy and just inspired that you were here with us today. One thing I wanted to bring back is just the gratitude. Gratitude came up. And gratitude is the attitude. And I was going to share one of my favorite, Fred Rogers is a hero of mine. He said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world. And I acknowledge you again, Meredith, for being who you are. I think this is what you're up to is amazing. And the fact that you're doing so much, it's amazing that you have any time, all the things you're so knowledgeable in so many different things. And I really look forward to having you back. And I really appreciate you being with us and sharing your story and answering those questions about being a female leader and just what you've been through and how you got here. And despite all the things you've been through, you're just a shining light and just an inspiration to us all. So I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you very much. I have amazing teams that let me have time to do these things because this is what's fun for me. So I love getting to share with people and meet new people. So,
well, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Meredith, and also thank you again to Sophia. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in with us. We do this for people like Meredith, for people like Sophia, who are just doing so much in this world and are up to big things and contributing to us all. And none of this is possible without you all, without you guys tuning in and viewing. We want to invite you to join us. We want to give you an opportunity to share what you have to offer. Share with us on the stage. You can go go to our website on the bottom of the screen there. You can see that. But you can also volunteer and be a part of the one day team, and make sure all these virtual stages are happening in time and in order. But I'm encouraged by the amazing people who've shared so far, and I hope if you're watching this right now, you'll consider it. Go to the link there. But I want to share with you our one day vision. One day, when we first started this whole thing, it started as a possibility. And, the vision of one day is humanity rising in a connected world with each person's unique contributions being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. And that's what we're doing. And that's what this space is for. And that's what we're inviting you to be a part of. So one day is not some distant day in the future. It's right now. And with you, we're all making one day today. So thank you all for tuning in. I love you. We'll see you tomorrow with some more amazing guests. And until then, have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.